Greetings. Perry Pope, Preventative Maintenance Coordinator and also a principal member of the Buffalo Sewer Authority's outreach team. The video that you have selected is a recording of a presentation that was presented by one of my colleagues.
This presentation occurred May 13th at the Schiller Park Senior Center, located at 2057 Genesee Street in the Lovejoy District.
If you are viewing this presentation after that date, subsequent events could have a material effect on this information.
By presenting this information, Buffalo Sewer has not undertaken any obligation to update the information beyond the date of the presentation.
Data and other information provided are not warranted as to completeness or accuracy and are subject to change without notice.
The views, policies, programs, and practices reflected herein also are subject to change without notice.
This presentation is provided for your information and convenience only.
Well, good evening, everyone. And thank you all so much for coming. This is the Lovejoy Council District meeting for the Queen City Clean Waters program. And anytime I go places, I have my favorite seat. And sometimes it's all the way in the back because I just like sitting back there. I kind of like hiding. So I'm going to do something that I normally do in church. And I feel comfortable doing it because it feels like home. So I want to ask if you can, those of you who hadn't gotten settled, if you can move a little closer to the front, because I think first off, our screen may be able to be seen a little bit better. And second of all, we can see you better. Not that I would personally like that if I was sitting in those seats, but thank you all so much. We do appreciate this. If you're just coming and you have not received anything to eat, please go back and get something to eat. We have food that has been provided by our chef, Ramon, who I will introduce later toward the end. They do such a fabulous job with the food experience. And so we want to make sure that at any time, please get up and grab some food. You won't be a distraction or hindrance. Also, we want to make sure that those of you who are here, if you are in the community and you have received the notification, whether it be by social media or whether it's something you received at the community center, please, by all means, if you have access to contact someone in your block, club, or coalition, let them know that we are here. And we were waiting on them, but we ain't gonna wait on them no more. So if and whenever they get here, they are more than welcome to come and grab some food in the back. I'm excited because we are going to learn a little bit about some of the projects that's going on in the Lovejoy district. And this is my district, so this is an exciting time. And for those of you who may be wondering, what in the world is the Queen City Clean Waters? And I've heard about this, and there was a whole bunch of flyers last year and all of those other things. So just really brief, I'm going to give a brief overview. My name is Art Hall. I am the CEO and president of Hallmark Planning and Development. We are a part of the program team, along with the other consultants, T.Y. Lin and Walt Walker, who I'll introduce in just a second, Arcadis, who is here, Nadia, and we do have J.M. Davison, along with the Buffalo Sewer Authority. So we'll talk a little bit more about the team, maybe a little bit later on in the meeting, but just to give a brief overview of those of you who may not know or haven't heard of the Queen City Clean Waters, this is Buffalo Sewer Authority's long-term investment in clean water and climate resilience. The goal of this is to reduce combined sewer overflows into rivers and streams and to improve the water quality and public health and to use infrastructure investment to drive neighborhood revitalization. We have set forth some community engagement initiatives last year, and we attended community meetings, events. We wanted to get the word out just as a prelude that, hey, something amazing is coming for our clean waters and revitalizing our sewer system. It's called the Queen City Clean Waters. And so you may have seen us at the Juneteenth. You may have seen us at University United Festival. You may have seen these trifold flyers going around with a map and a whole bunch of, dots on the inside with 50 projects. Well, now this is the opportunity where we get a chance to talk about those projects within each district. And so with that, we're going to have a presentation today. We're going to talk about what's going to be coming down the line for the Schiller Park neighborhood within the Lovejoy district and the Lovejoy district. Those of you who are from the Schiller Park neighborhood know that we've had a couple of meetings, actually several meetings with Wendell about Schiller Park. And this is undergoing some renovation. And so we're excited about what's happening in the neighborhood. So without further ado, I want to introduce our leader of the program team and the consultant team who's taking this on. Please welcome all the way from Philly. Now, I didn't say he was a Philadelphia Eagles fan. That's true. I'm not trying to start a fight. But my friend all the way from Philly, please, let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Walt Walker.
Thank you, Art, and good morning, everyone. I'm going to keep, good evening. Been working all day. I'm going to keep it short so I can turn it over to Rosie as soon as possible. But on behalf of the program management team, the consultant team, working with Buffalo Sewer to advance the Queen City Clean Waters Initiative, a thank you, first and foremost. And secondly, this is just one of many touch points that we'll continue to have with the community, broader coalition of stakeholders. Over the next 10, 15 years, the delivery and implementation of this series of infrastructure projects to improve public health will be centered in partnerships, education, and opportunities for community growth. So we commit to the City of Buffalo, the community, Buffalo Sewer Authority, to keep the community in mind as it relates to education, transparency, partnerships, and opportunity centered around Queen City Clean Waters. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rosie Noble, Principal Sanitary Sewer Engineer at Buffalo Sewer, and she'll guide you through history of Buffalo Sewer, how the long-term control plan, now Queen City Clean Waters, came about, some of the specific projects within the district, and then we'll go to a break for some question and answer, followed by some community outreach strategies and opportunities to engage in Queen City Clean Waters. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rosie.
Thank you. That on, so I've got hands-free here because I like to talk with my hands, and they're already giving me this clicker to take up one hand. So first and foremost, I want to mention that this presentation is being given on May 13th, 2025. If you are watching a recording or viewing slides from this presentation at a later time and date, some of the information may change over time. And so we want to be clear as to when this is being presented, and that this is true today, and it may change as we have different information and things continue to evolve over time. Just a little bit on our agenda today. I'm going to cover some background information, the overall plan, and then the specific projects within the Lovejoy district, and then opportunities to stay engaged. This slide has a lot of key terminology, and a lot of that key terminology is in very small print to begin with, and with this very small screen is going to be very difficult to see. So let's go over some of the more important things here. Is CSO, that is a combined sewer overflow. That is when the sanitary flow that you're flushing down the toilet, flushing down the sink, draining within the drains within the house, is mixing with stormwater in the same pipe. And during extreme wet weather events, overflows out to the waterways. GI, or green infrastructure, is the use of natural processes and the ability of natural materials to hold water and have rain and other precipitation stay in the place where it falls, and then either stay there permanently, be used by the plants, or be released slowly back into that combined sewer system. Inline storage is using the existing pathways of sewage and storing within those pathways. Offline storage is building offline, and so having the flow divert into an offline facility and then come back into the system. Real-time control is the means to look at what is happening upstream and downstream and elsewhere in the system to control whether you are having inline or offline storage. And other use of real-time data to inform how you're controlling your system. And a sewer patrol point is a Buffalo Sewer Authority specific terminology. This is what Buffalo Sewer has used over the past 75 years to describe those points in our system where there are weirs or other regulating devices to keep the dry weather sanitary sewage in our system and flowing to the Bird Island treatment plant at all times, and keeping the combined sewage, the mix of sanitary and stormwater, in the system except during those most extreme events. But allowing those overflows to happen rather than permitting basement backups or backups into the streets. So we call that, we abbreviate sewer patrol point as SPP. We will try in this presentation not to use any of these acronyms as acronyms, but if I slip up, CSO, combined sewer overflow, GI, green infrastructure, ILS is inline storage, OLS, offline storage, RTC is real-time control, and SPP is sewer patrol point. The other term that I may use is WEIR. WEIR is the engineering term for those dams that are in the system that Buffalo Sewer Authority calls SPPs. And so WEIR is the technical engineering term. Again, I try to use the word dam to refer to both the SPPs and WEIRs, but if I mix up, those are the words. Okay, a brief history of Buffalo sewers. So we like to cover a bit of history because the most frequent questions we get is in regard to why do we have a combined sewer system in the city of Buffalo? All the suburbs have separate systems. Why would you put everything into one pipe? And the easy answer is because it's always been in one pipe. And by always, our oldest system goes back to the 1840s. And the reason it goes back to the 1840s is because the city of Buffalo in 1825 was a little village on the western frontier. And then the Erie Canal opened. And from the point of the Erie Canal opening until around 1935, the city of Buffalo experienced absolute incredible growth year on year for over 100 years. And by 1832, so 7 years after the canal opened, already downtown Buffalo was experiencing cholera epidemics because raw sewage was running in the streets and people were drinking water that was contaminated with raw sewage. And every time it rained, the streets would flood with water and sewage. And so people didn't understand cholera in terms of germs, but they understood that it stunk out in the streets. And so the wealthiest citizens in 1832 started to put in their own private sewers, which failed within a decade. But by 1848, the city of Buffalo determined that they were going to put in these red line sewers in downtown Buffalo to connect to what was the canal system at that time. So the Erie Canal is here, and then the Maine and Hamburg Canal is here. And this here is what we call Larkinville today. Back then it was the hydraulics, and this is the hydraulic canal that powered the paddle wheels for the hydraulic mills of the mid-19th century. And this neighborhood and everywhere along the canals, that's where people were getting cholera. And they were getting cholera because there was raw sewage in the street. Putting in those sewers in 1848 in these areas meant that the people in those areas didn't get cholera, but people up further into the hydraulics, they got cholera. And there was areas over here that, again, still cholera. And 1848, it was about 10 years before the Civil War broke out. This system, they started to build out further over the next 10 years. But then you had the Civil War, and construction stopped. But then 10 years, well, immediately after the Civil War, it was determined that they needed to expand the sewer system and also improve that existing system that had been constructed back in the 1840s. And by 1884, the city of Buffalo had hired George Waring, who was a colonel from the U.S. Union Army, and they hired him to design a sewer system for the entirety of the city of Buffalo from south of Scajaquada Creek and north of the river. And part of the design had to deal with people were getting sick along that canal down in downtown Buffalo still. And again, they were tying it to the smells. And so this sewer that's in green here was part of this plan. It was called the Swan Trunk. And at these orange points, a series of gates were installed in that sewer with the express purpose of flushing that sewer and during dry weather and during wet weather, carrying stormwater out to the Niagara River. Now, in 1884, when Waring was hired, that was the time that the city of Buffalo had the possibility of separating the sewers. And there was also the possibility of putting in a very rudimentary treatment facility, such as what was designable in 1884. However, Waring believed that if you put in these flushing gates, you flushed out the canals, and you put in large enough pipes, the difference between putting in a large storm sewer and the next size up to take that dry weather flow as well was not that much bigger. But putting in two parallel sewers was going to be very expensive. And then constructing a treatment plant, he really didn't see the point to, because as long as you got it out past the Bird Island and the Bird Island Pier, it would get out to the Niagara River, and the Niagara River was carrying all of the upper Great Lakes through it. It was going by with this great velocity. As long as you got it out of the city and into the Niagara River, the city of Buffalo's problem was gone. And so he, under his guidance, the city of Buffalo constructed the Swan Trunk, the Genesee Trunk, the Bird Ferry Trunk, the two Bailey Trunks, and eventually the Hurdle Trunk as well, over between 1880 and 1900. And then they built out a whole series of sewers on all of the side streets and all of the right-of-ways throughout the city of Buffalo to connect to those trunks, and ultimately connected those trunks together into a pipe that went out to the tip of Bird Island, out to the Niagara River. And this fixed this problem of sewage for a good 40 years within the city of Buffalo. Then by 1900, the biggest issue was those still open canals and creeks. And among them was Scajaquada Creek. And especially Scajaquada Creek, we're right here at Schiller Park. And so Scajaquada Creek coming into this area of the city and going all the way to Forest Lawn would routinely jump its banks, flood people's homes, spread animal manure and dead animals into the people's homes. It was considered a nuisance. And the people living along the creek and who had owned land along the creek were outraged that this was allowed to continue and petitioned the city of Buffalo's government to do something about it. And so what they did with Scajaquada Creek is they dropped it 10 feet and they buried it. They put in thick concrete walls, put in an arch over top of it, and turned it into the Scajaquada drain. And so if you go up past the college here, you'll see where the Scajaquada Creek is flowing from Cheektowaga, and it goes underground, and it doesn't come back up again until you get to Forest Lawn. And so that was the major project of the 1920s. In addition to that, that Hamburg and Maine Canal became the Hamburg Drain, and the Ohio Turning Basin was turned into the Ohio Drain. And so all the canals, the majority of the canals that were in downtown Buffalo became storm sewers and storm overflow sewers. Now, I said that we fixed the problems for the city of Buffalo. Well, we created a new problem. And that new problem was that 0.2% of the population of Niagara Falls was dying every year from typhoid, because the people of Niagara Falls were drinking the people of Buffalo's sewage. Yep. And so this became the impetus for the International Joint Commission on the Great Lakes to be formed. And by 1918, it was established that 80% of the pollution in the Niagara River was due to the city of Buffalo discharging raw sewage into the river, and that this was directly correlated with 0.2% of the population of Niagara Falls dying every year. Now, there was a bunch of engineering reports, a bunch of planning done, and no major construction happening. And then there was the Great Depression. And so 1935, the New York State Department of Health, under pressure from both the Canadian and the US governments, issued a mandate to the city of Buffalo. You need to build a treatment facility, and you need to build sewers connecting those existing sewers to that treatment facility. And we call these interceptor sewers because they intercepted the existing trunk lines and carried the dry weather flow to that new primary or physical treatment facility. And on April 8th, 1935, the Buffalo Sewer Authority was founded with the explicit purpose of having the bonding capability to construct this project and to deal with sanitary sewage and drainage within the city of Buffalo. And so 15 million back in 1935 would have been about 344 million in 2024. And so throughout the 1930s, Buffalo Sewer Authority did construct that treatment plant out on Bird Island, and then a series of connecting sewers. With those connecting sewers, intercepting the existing sewers right before the existing outfalls. So the existing points where the pipes connected to the waterways. And they were connected in such a way that those weirs, those dams we were talking about earlier, those were put into these interceptor sewers so that you have the dams intercepting, keeping the dry weather in, keeping everything flowing to the treatment plant, but during wet weather, flow can overflow those dams and go out those old outfalls. So that's how things existed up until World War II. After the Second World War, we started to experience urban sprawl in and around the city of Buffalo. And part of that impetus for urban sprawl, part of the ability to have that was the construction of the New York State 33 Kensington Expressway. And when that throughway, when the 33 came through, there's the sections that are below grade. And those sections cut through existing pipes, including that bird and ferry trunk that I talked about earlier. And so suddenly, don't press the wrong button on a clicker. Suddenly the pipe that went from one side of the city to the other stopped at the 33 and had to be diverted around the 33 in order to get flows to the Bird Island treatment facility. And the section west of the 33 no longer received the flows that it received before. Additionally, a lot more stormwater was being added to the system because suddenly you had 12 lanes of asphalt that were taking in stormwater. Hard surface, doesn't allow anything to infiltrate. The water just sits on the surface and needs to be pumped out of that ditch back up to the height of the existing sewers. And then additional trunk sewers had to be created to get flows around the 33. The 198, it created multiple lanes of hard surface. And in that case, the stormwater was just going right into Scajaquada Creek. And today, if you have an oil spill, if you have a car crash on the 198, then all of the oil and grease goes directly into Scajaquada Creek because there's nothing to keep it out. And then the 190 they needed to find open land to construct it. And so the open land that they found was the old right-of-way for the Erie Canal. But that old right-of-way for the Erie Canal is also where the interceptor was laid and where part of that Swan Trunk is also. And so the Hamburg Drain, which was that sewer we talked about, the Swan Trunk, and the interceptor lie underneath the 190, and accessibility is limited by that. So that's the deep history. Then we have 1972, Clean Water Act. A new pipe, a deep tunnel was constructed across the city of Buffalo. Scajaquada Creek was taking in a lot of overflows, and it was determined that we really needed to cut down the amount of overflows going to Scajaquada Creek, and the way to do that was to put in a tunnel 50 foot below grade. And so again, over in Schiller Park, more towards the south along the parking lot, there's flow comes in from the town of Cheektowaga, so sanitary flows coming in. And then if you get over to Sprenger, there's those giant manholes, which one of the manhole covers, the Parks Department decided needed to have a bench on top of it. And so when it rains real hard, suddenly there's little spurts coming up under that bench. That's the tunnel. That is that deep tunnel. And then it goes across the city of Buffalo and ends just off of Lafayette um, at Niagara Street. And so that's taking that's a 90-inch diameter tunnel going across the city of Buffalo, 50 foot below grade. And they raised those dams along the Skagit system so that more flow stayed in the system and more flow was diverted into that tunnel. Kelly Island is the outer harbor. Up until the 1970s, the outer harbor was not connected to the Buffalo Sewer Authority system because when the Sewer Authority was authorized in 1935, it was for sanitary sewage and stormwater. There was no mention of industrial sewage. And so the industries on the outer harbor said, you have no jurisdiction over us. Therefore, we're just going to keep pushing industrial flows out to the Buffalo River and to the lake. So 1972, the US government and New York State closed that loophole on industry and said they needed to discharge and start the pre-treatment process so that we could actually treat the flows that they're sending us. And then the third thing that happened under the Clean Water Act is our secondary treatment facility was brought up. So up until this point, we had physical treatment facility. That's solids go into these giant tanks. So let me step back. First, the flow coming in is screened through grates. So it's just going through grates, and then it's going through a process to get the grit out. So it goes through chambers where grit is spun to the bottom and taken out. So we've taken out the rags, we've taken out the grit. Now we're down to toilet paper and poop and water. And that's what goes into these giant tanks. And the water is flowing into the tank. It's allowed to settle in still enough that the poop and other solids sink to the bottom. And then the water goes over dams, again, weirs, at the top, and then is treated with chlorine. And then that chlorinated water is what goes out to the waterways. At least that's how it worked up until the 1970s. And that was the entirety of our treatment plant until the 1970s. 1970s, that water was then taken on a new pathway to some additional pumps, and then it was sent to these center tanks where we have some nice happy bugs that like to eat poop. And there's air added, and between the poop and the air, the bugs are happy. They sit around, they eat and breed and have a good old time, and they get nice and fat. And then they go to these tanks over here, and they sink to the bottom of those tanks. And we pick out a few of the nice ones, and we send them back to these tanks so they can have a happy time again. And the rest of them we send for solids processing. Then the water we again send for chlorination and then out to the waterway. And so this biological system further reduces the bacteria and the poop and other solids in the water going out. And so that's how our treatment plant works. That's where we were in 1994. 1994, US EPA issued their combined sewer overflow guidance. And this said to all of the combined systems across the country, you need to do a better job of preventing overflows. You need to reduce them. If possible, you need to eliminate them. And in 2004, Buffalo Sewer Authority, after 10 years of study and model and trying to understand all of the goings-on in this complex system, sent an initial report to EPA and DEC and said, this is our plan. And 3 years later, EPA and DEC came back and said, we have some questions. We need you to do some more work. We're not going to approve this plan. And so over the next 5 years, the Buffalo Sewer Authority and EPA and DEC continued to work together. And in 2012 submitted a revised plan. And that revised plan included inline storage through computer-controlled gates and green infrastructure. So again, storing in place. It was really innovative for the time. And in 2014, that plan was approved. On March 18th, 2014, that plan was approved. We were off and running. And then in 2022, we had been doing some additional metering. We had been asked to remodel our system because the model at that point was about 20 years old. And the remodeling showed that if we did everything in that 2014 plan, we would not be in compliance. We would not meet the goals that were laid out in that 2014 plan. So we could do all the work, we could spend all the money, and we would still not be in compliance. We would still have to do more work. And so at that point, we reached out to the regulators and said, hey, instead of us continuing to do work that we know won't meet the goal, let's figure out what work will meet the goal and what we need to do to get there. And let's do that now instead of waiting another 10 years to get there. So when I say we didn't meet the goal, our goal for the Buffalo River is that we can only overflow 6 times per year. If we did everything in the 2014 plan, we would overflow 15 times. Again, the goal for Niagara is 9. We would be at 14. For Skagit Creek, the goal is 4. We would be at 19. And so the plan doesn't work. The 2014 plan just would not work. So then we took a step back and said, okay, well, we know that for the overflows, but what about each of those individual dams, those weirs, those SPPs? And what we found is that really 13 of them we could get into compliance with the 2014 plan. 174, they're already in compliance. They're not a problem. They're already below those thresholds today. But there's 18 that if we did everything that we said we'd do in 2014, would not succeed. And a lot of those 18 are along that Skagit corridor. And so several of them are in Lovejoy and in University District and in Maston District. There's also, because Lovejoy is shaped the way it is, several of them down along the Buffalo River as well. Now, when we were trying to figure out how to move forward, we looked at 77 different potential projects and ultimately came up with 50 of those that would meet compliance, that were reasonably constructible, could have community benefits, and really limited the problems that we'd had with projects up until that point. So one of the things that really was a guide point was we don't want to be putting in more pump stations, because our experience has been that pump stations are expensive, are hard to maintain, and have parts in them that can have very long times to be able to be repaired and be ordered. And that was a point of difficulty with our existing system, adding more of those. And we also don't have a lot of the folks who have the skill to do that work. And so adding more of those creates a good chance that even if we construct everything, it wouldn't be maintained, it wouldn't be able to be functional, and so we wouldn't meet compliance. And so we ended up with the 50-site, billion-dollar, 15-year Queen City Clean Waters. So what this means for Lovejoy in particular, we have the Balliet Kearns site, which this one actually we are fast tracking now. We have an existing project that is in the vicinity. And so instead of opening the ground up twice, we are going to go ahead and get this done now instead of waiting until we come back around another year or two and opening up the same hole all over again. And so we have a contractor that has been working on the Scajaquada Creek Black Rock Canal real-time control project. And so that contractor is being allocated this work. We're going to add it to his contract and then get this done. And so what they're doing is they're basically raising the weir, the dam higher so that more flow goes into the ultimately to the Scajaquada tunnel, and less flow is overflowing to Scajaquada Creek. Then one of the next projects is going to be at Genesee and Kearns. So over, we look at Kearns and going into Scajaquada Street. That's the old Scajaquada Creek. And both the Scajaquada drain and the Scajaquada tunnel crisscross each other along that pathway. So a lot of these you will see are following that pathway because ultimately we're trying to get flow from the tunnel or from the creek into the tunnel. And so this is at the edge of the park. It's basically there. There is currently a chamber or a couple of chambers out here in the street. We're going to connect into those chambers, but stay over in the park area so that we can get access to those locations. And we're just rebalancing how the water flows. So again, a dam is being raised and more flow is being put into the tunnel. The next one is Schiller Park. This is where we're looking to put in an underground offline storage tank to take flow coming from Cheektowaga, parking it so that we have extra space in that tunnel. And then allowing that flow to come back into the system when there's space for it. But then that frees up space downstream for the rest of the tunnel system. So when you keep seeing me raising the weirs and changing the downstream, this is one of the projects that we're looking to create more space. Kearns at Texas, again, like I said, along Kearns, so this is this is getting flow, again, off of Scajaquada Creek and increasing the size of the pipe that takes the dry weather flow. And so right now that pipe is too small. We're increasing it so that we can get more flow into that tunnel. And again, raising the level of the dam to do so. And then we have Kearns at Hagen. And again, like I said, we have the curve of the creek right here. So that's why everything is right here. Again, we have two existing holes that need to be made bigger so that we can get more flow into the tunnel. And we also need to put in a valve so that the Scajaquada Creek, the Scajaquada drain, doesn't flow back into the system and isn't backing up into the dry weather system. So that's up in the Scajaquada Creek system. And as you saw earlier, it was 19 overflows The other piece is that Skajackwada Creek and the Black Rock Canal are most impacted by CSOs, by the combined sewers. When we get to Buffalo River, it is much less impacted by the pollution from combined sewer overflows. Much of the pollution to the Buffalo River is actually from upstream contributors, from our suburban neighbors and from rural neighbors. And it also suffers from the fact that the lower Buffalo River is channelized and was dug down an extra 50 feet. And so water goes in there and sits. And so that stagnant water doesn't flow really well most of the year. And so bacteria just sits there and builds up. It made sense to prioritize Skajackwada Creek and the Black Rock Canal first, and then deal with those water bodies that are less impacted by CSOs, and in the process, improving water quality for everyone. So Babcock and south of Elk Street, this is, well, here's the new soccer stadium that they're going to be bringing online for U.S. Soccer. Basically we have this existing system that kind of goes down here, makes a U-turn and goes back this way. And we're just allowing more flow to go back and less flow to go out at the base of Babcock out to the river. And then we have Clinton and Kelburn at Glen. This is the Houghton Park offline storage. This is where we're looking, and again, this is not a specific tank. This is a very theoretical tank. And so exactly how it's configured, the final size, the final cost is something that we're continuing to drill down on. But we're looking that there will need to be a tank underground within Houghton Park. And it's going to be balancing flows coming down Clinton Street. On the other side of Bailey is where flows come in from South Buffalo and from West Seneca. And there's a pump station at the base of Bailey that's taking all the flows from West Seneca and from South Buffalo and pumping it to that interceptor system. So it's balancing the flows coming from South Buffalo and West Seneca, from Clinton Street within the city of Buffalo, and then down here is where Erie County Sewer District number 4, which is Lancaster, Depew, Alden, is coming in. And so it's acting to balance the flows between these 3 different contributors. And so it reduces the combined sewer overflows by doing that balancing act. And then we have the Niagara Thruway and Bailey. So again, we have all of these points where we have a lot of different flows coming in together. This is within an existing manhole, raising the height of the dam. So this is one that it's not in a great location, so the biggest issue is going to be traffic control, but the actual likely construction should not be that dramatic. It's not in a great place. Then we have Moreland Park. This is behind the police station here, and this is the police station ball field. It's getting some upgrades in the very near future, but we're going to be putting, again, an offline storage tank here. In this case, right now the design calls for a pump station. And so that pump station would be located in a vacant lot across the street. But again, we're trying to limit as many pump stations as possible and carry as much by gravity flow as possible. And that's projects. And so now we have a break and the ability to have Q&A. So I'm going to let Art take over for a little while here.
So this is our question and answer section. Now, the good thing about this is that we all can participate. Are there any questions? And I promise I won't pick on anyone who looks like a student, because if my son was here, I'd probably pick on him. Are there any questions with regards to, I'm gonna go all the way back from the history, all the way up to what we're all here for, which are the projects in the Lovejoy district. Any questions? Now, here's how we're going to administer this. Those of you who are at tables, you may have a little sticky notepad thing there. And you may also have some, we left some pens for you. We want you to be engaged to ask the question, but do me a favor and put the question on that little sticky note, and we'll have a representative from the team to come around and grab the sticky note. Or better yet, what we'd like, for an opportunity to you all to participate, we have 2 poster boards. One poster board has the district map, and the other poster board has what we call a frequently asked questions section. So one half of it is frequently asked questions and answers, and the other is blank, because we want to be able to have your questions in that section. And what we're doing is we're compiling a series of questions. We're going to take these questions back to our engineers, back to the team, the program team, and we're going to sit down and we're going to look at the questions and we're going to bring up best answers for these questions. That doesn't mean we're going to tell you what you want to hear. That means that we really are going to get answers to the questions if they are specific to a particular project. Some of the questions we get are reference to a timeline. We want to make sure we get that. And then those are going to go on our interactive website, which we're going to get to in just a second. So, any questions?
Raise your hand.
You can just start talking. There we go.
Okay. Are we still getting sick?
Oh, are we still getting sick? The question is, are we still getting sick?
Are we still getting sick? There have not been reported cases of typhoid or cholera in quite a while. Can people still experience symptoms of E. coli and other waterborne illnesses when they go kayaking or otherwise interacting with the waters immediately after a storm? Yes, that there have been folks that have experienced illnesses when they are contacting the waters, especially immediately after a storm event. But again, it's not from drinking water. It's not from, it's not most people.
Follow-up question, I just want to make sure. My bill comes, it's got the sewer and the water on it. They're not both together, right?
So the Buffalo Sewer Authority is a separate agency from the Buffalo Water Board.
Okay.
And the Buffalo Water Board is a public-private partnership between the city of Buffalo and Veolia. Veolia collects both the Buffalo Sewer Authority's rates and the Buffalo Water Authority's water bill rates. They then send Buffalo Sewer the sewer share, but we are not the same entity. Other questions?
Yeah, what about like green infrastructure? nothing you could do that way to be able to minimize like the overflows in that?
So we are implementing green infrastructure, and we will be implementing green infrastructure in Lovejoy. It's going to be a lot less concentrated. We're really focusing on the large scale projects with this outreach. Um, but if you look at that map over there, there are some dark green spots, and those dark green spots represent individual green infrastructure installations. We are currently looking to invest about $80 million as part of our Rain Check 2.0 in green infrastructure in mostly throughout the east side, whether it's Lovejoy, Maston, University, Fillmore, Ellicott districts. But it's throughout mostly the east side that we're looking to make that $80 million investment.
My last question basically concerns these tanks that you put in there. I noticed you put them in like all in like green areas and parks. I mean, the park down by me, Walking Park, that land has probably never been disturbed. I was wondering like why you pick like areas like that. I can understand you're not going to do eminent domain and things like that, but there's a tremendous amount of area there that's just sitting out.
So the areas that were chosen because it is public lands, and we need.
Walking Park, 2/3 of it is an old landfill. Why don't you put the tank there?
So we did try to avoid those areas where we would be disturbing potentially hazardous materials as much as possible.
So you're going to leave hazardous materials there.
They're undisturbed as it is, and they're contained as it is. We are again, we're trying to minimize the hazardous waste management.
There's no line on it.
And again, we're not trying to get into the hazardous waste management piece. Trying to minimize the cost and increase the benefit. Trying to remove those materials does bring it into contact with the community, and as much as possible, we're trying to minimize that.
It's always going to be in contact with the community as long as it's there.
It's there. It's contained as is. We're trying not to disturb it further. Any other questions?
I want to send an acknowledgement to one of our block club leaders who is here with us today, Mrs. Nguyen. I have to put you on the spot. If you just raise your hand, thank you so much for being with us. And yes, we want to acknowledge our block club leaders, and Ms. Nguyen is one of our block club. Actually, she manages 2 block clubs, so that means don't mess with her. And we're so grateful that she's here. What I want to do is just do a quick segue. If there are no more questions, I want to do a quick segue into the community engagement and stakeholder outreach that we've done, and then have an opportunity for us to do a participatory activity. So when we began this, one of the things that we looked at is when we started this, we wanted to ensure that as we approach communities, that we approached it with 7 key indicators. And these indicators are designed for us to approach it in an equitable way, in an engaging way, and in a way where we were able to get participation and collaborate with the community as we went through this project. And so 7 equitable indicators that we looked at is, an opportunity for community ownership. We wanted to make sure that the community was involved and they had ownership in this, not just coming and participating in meetings and asking questions, but really having meaningful involvement throughout the program and the duration of the program and the projects in their districts and neighborhoods. Capacity building, healthy communities, heritage preservation, maintaining heritage preservation throughout communities, and sustainable wealth creation. Mr. Walker will talk a little bit, and you may have heard him talk before, but he'll talk a little bit more later on, not a full presentation today, about the public participation program and about the community benefits and what we're trying to do with the community benefits throughout the duration of the program. New and reform policies, sustainable development, and then the most important, all of them are important, but lastly, not least, is long-term growth management. What do our communities look like over the course of the next 30, 40, and 50 years? We want to be able to create healthy, sustainable communities. So when we approach this, what we had in mind was we wanted to make sure that we are approaching this from an engagement perspective with these things in mind. Will these be accomplished over the course of the next 5, 10 years? Maybe not, but the idea is to put forth in place these opportunities so that we will have a much better sustainable future in our communities. One of the ways that we wanted to do this and have participation is by creating a stakeholder advisory committee. And what we've done is we've identified a long list of individuals, and we knew that we probably would not have those individuals all at the same time on the stakeholder advisory committee. So we created a rubric, and we wanted to make sure that we not only had people who are very popular, but we wanted to make sure that we had the right people who are going to participate, who are going to be champions for the program, and who are going to also lead and guide us as we go through the engagement process. And so we've pulled from some of the organizations that are involved in our communities, everywhere from the Northland Workforce Training Center, the Buffalo Urban League, Local Initiative Support Corporation, Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper, and Office of Strategic Planning from the city. This was a very rigorous process that we went through, going through with the Buffalo Sewer Authority, the program team, and making sure that we had individuals who are going to be committed to this program and advising us on how engagement should look. Where should we be doing engagement? What events we should be attending? Who do we need to be reaching out to? And who do we need to continue to be in conversation with to participate in this program? And so we've developed this team. We had an initial orientation meeting where we got on a Zoom call with everyone and said, hey, here's the program, here are the projects, here's our role, and here's your role. Your role is advising us on how to do our role. And so we wanted to make sure that we were clear on roles. And then after that, we had a strategic planning session. We came in person at the Buffalo Sewer Authority. We got in that conference room and we centered our focus on 5 key phases. We said, if we're going to be effective in doing public engagement, and if we're going to be effective, and if this is going to be an equitable opportunity, we need to be intentional about that. And so we used a methodology that we often use. There are several, but one that we often use is called the spectrum of engagement. It's by the International Association of Public Participation. So there are 5 core phases. We wanted to inform the community. We wanted to be in a position for the community to consult us. We wanted to collaborate with the community. We wanted to be involved with the community. And we wanted to have an opportunity for the community to be empowered. So those are those 5 phases: inform, consult, involve, collaborate, and empower. And what we did was we had 5 poster boards, and we broke up into groups, and we said, how can we inform the community? What is the best way we can do that? And then consult, how can we put ourselves in a position where we can listen to the community? How can we be involved with the community? It's important that when we have meetings like this, these meetings are important and we have to do these and we want to do these and we need to make sure that we're reaching out to the community. But Ms. Gwen will tell you, if you want to know what the community is doing and what to be involved in, come to where we are. We have our meetings at certain days and certain times. And if you want to know what's going on in the community and what we're doing, Ms. Gwen is more than happy. We'll give you an invite. And if you're not careful, she may give you an opportunity to speak during announcements. Now, if you take that opportunity and speak during announcements, you better be ready for some questions. Okay, but that is where all of this happens. And so we looked at all of these things, and we have our monthly meetings where we give updates. We're going to give an update on this meeting. We give updates on if there's any activity on our engagement site, and we always make sure that we're incorporating them into the decision making process for our engagement efforts. And so we have our community partnership program that's coming in 2025. The Sewer Authority wants to ensure construction professionals, services, contractors deliver a positive and economic, environmental, social impacts to the residents. When we begin these projects, we want to make sure that those companies, those contractors that are MBE certified, the black and brown contractors, we want to make sure that they know about it, that they are applying for it, and that they are equipped for these jobs. But we took it a little further than that. We wanted to make sure that individuals who are the handyman and those individuals who are in, the construction arena, we want to give them an opportunity to be educated and then to get their certification and to get their licenses. And so I say this to say, and we're not going to talk too much about this because I have the man who is here who can talk about this. And I'll talk about it a little bit more at a later time, but we wanted to make sure that we were positioning black and brown contractors so that they can be equipped, educated to be able to occupy some of these jobs that are going to be coming down the line. So this is a very strong and intentional opportunity. Education and some of the other areas that we're going to be focusing on with our community partnership program. And so we talked a little bit about this, creating those economic opportunities for disadvantaged minority, women-owned business enterprise, and those firms. Also disabled veteran businesses, SBDOV, those businesses that are able to apply for some of the contracts here. So now, I want to talk a little bit about an opportunity to stay engaged. So when we do our engagement, we are boots on the ground. We are going to community meetings. We are going to events. We are participating at neighborhood level. We're participating at the government level. We are participating regionally. We're doing all of these things, but we understand that we are in a digital age, and there are opportunities that people can engage digitally. And so we wanted to make sure that that was an opportunity for individuals to stay connected and to stay engaged. So one of the things that we brought to the program for everyone to stay engaged is an interactive website. Now, I can talk about this, and I am going to talk about it, but here's what we're going to do. You see that little QR code that's on your table there, that sheet of paper? Now, everybody can do this. If you do me a favor and get out your phone or mobile device, get out your phone. No, I want everybody to do it because y'all sitting here looking at me. Everybody get out your phone. I'm not going to act like we're in a concert and say, hold your phone in the air, turn your light on. No, we're not going to do that. But I want you to click that QR code, and it's going to bring you to this website. Now, when you got this site, give me a thumbs up or raise your hand. 1, 2. All right, we got 2 people. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, great, wonderful. Now, one of the things that you'll notice, this QR code is kind of small from where you all are sitting. One of the things you'll notice is we have some information. We got some of the background on the website. We have our frequently asked questions section, right? So those of you who have questions, no matter who you are, even if you're a staff person, if you have a question, just write it down and make sure you post it on our post-it board. And then we have a little bit about the project, but then if you scroll a little further, or if you're on your mobile device, you'll see it in an aligned fashion. We have a section that says, take our survey. Do y'all see that? Raise your hand if you see it. Take our survey. Yes, yes, yes. Now, if our program director is participating in this, everybody needs to be participating. All right, we see it. So now here's the deal. I want you to click on that, take our survey, And I want you to take, it's only 3 minutes. 3 minutes to do the survey. Ready, set, go. Some of you have already started. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Excellent. Take the survey. And as you're taking the survey, what this helps us with is it helps us to bring back your information, your ideas, and to incorporate this into our engagement processes. So not only we have a stakeholder advisory committee, not only we have part of a program team, but also we have your input where we can now bring this back and we can say, hey, here's what Lovejoy said with regards to how we should take this information and how we can incorporate this into our daily, monthly, quarterly, annual engagement processes. How many of y'all finished? Hold on, it's coming. There's only been 2 minutes. I got another 2 minutes. Make sure you continue to take this and and what the survey also does is it's an opportunity for you to know and understand some of the things that we are thinking about as a engagement team, as a program team. And if there's any additional comments or questions at the last question, please, please, please put those in there. If there's a question that we can add to the survey, we kind of have it out there now, but if there's anything we have missed, if there's any suggestions, all of that is relevant. We need to make sure that we're capturing information. Okay. I'm waiting to see the first hand of completion. I thought I saw first hand. This must be a good survey. All right. And kudos to the team, because just as we have put together the stakeholder advisory committee and we collaborated on this survey. We came up with some, all of the engagement that we've done last summer, all of the Juneteenth and the University District United and all of those things. We had an initial survey that was initiated by E3 Communications, who's also part of the program team. It was a communication survey. We kind of took some of the demographic data from that and some other information, and we used it to build on an engagement survey. So all of our engagement activity and a little bit of the information that we got from that survey, we were able to build on this. Those of you who are finished, there's another section. Now, our surveys were pretty much multiple choice, and that's by design. We wanted to make sure that you go through it, you get through it. We do have the next section, which is a community forum, and it's a question. You can take an opportunity to do that, and we want you to participate in that because this is the part where you can actually give a response. Survey is multiple choice. We wanted to make sure that that was timely, and we wanted to capture some information, and we wanted to be able to put it in to analyze it so that we can have a visual of responses. But the second section or link is a community forum. And there's a question, and we want you to answer the question and just give a response. But once you give your response, you will be able to see other people's response, and you can like their response. You can respond to their response. You can comment on someone's response, has kind of like that social media feel. And then the last section is what we call our social map. It's an interactive map. Now, if you scroll down to the interactive map, do y'all see that? Y'all got to the link where you see social map? I want you to do me a favor. Click on the social map. See, I thought y'all did the survey and y'all were done. No. Click on the social map. And for today's exercise, it's highlighted by council district. And all of these icons, you have a legend that's on there. All of these icons are projects that are going on throughout the city of Buffalo. The same projects that we have displayed in our trifold and what Rosie had just talked about. However, if you go over to the Lovejoy district, all the way east, the green, dark green section, and you click on that, you can look at the projects that are in this district. And if you can look and see the projects that are going to be going on near your neighborhood. I tell you now, there are about 4 projects that's going to be going on right here near Genesee and near Kearns and that area, Miss Gwen. And so these are opportunities where we can have some discussion and dialogue about what's going to be going on. Right? Okay. Do y'all see the social map? Okay, fantastic. Please use this as a resource. Save this link and this interactive website to your favorites. Go back to it. We're going to be updating this with more information. We're going to have updates here. We're going to be adding information to it. Stay up to speed with this. This is specific toward this project. And we want to make sure that you all are continuing to participate. Share this link. Share it with your block clubs and share it with your friends, your networks, your coworkers, so that they can participate and stay up to speed on this as well. Website is buffalosewer.org. You can also go to Buffalo Sewer Authority website to stay up to speed with the project and also with the Buffalo Sewer Authority. And we have the best, Sewer Authority has the best source of information for these updates. Thank you all so much for coming and participating. Was this informative? Yes. I know some of us have heard this, especially those of us who are staff and part of the program. Yeah, we heard it about 2, 3. This is our 4th time hearing it, and it's still good. Isn't it still good? Thank you. It's still good. Thank you all so much for coming. Please make sure you get some more food. Oh, also big shout out to Chef Ramon and the Food Experience for providing a fantastic dinner. Thank you all so much. If you have your questions, please post them on the Post-it note. This concludes our district meeting for this evening. Thank you.